When you're trying to protect a handful of critical devices, maybe a home office workstation, a NAS, or a small rack-mount server, it's easy to feel a little jittery about which uninterruptible power supply will actually give you peace of mind. The market is full of big numbers that look impressive at first glance, and the fear of overpaying for something that never gets used is real. That's why I'm going to walk through the APC 1000 VA Smart UPS the way a buyer would, looking at everyday usage, hidden trade-offs, and whether the price truly matches the value. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment this unit was built for. It's a 2U rack-mountable UPS, but the chassis is deliberately short depth, so it fits into cramped networking closets where space is at a premium. If you've ever tried to jam a full-size 4U UPS into a 12U rack and ended up blocking airflow for the rest of your equipment, you'll understand why that matters. The unit runs on lithium-ion batteries rather than the older lead-acid chemistry you see in many entry-level models. In practice, that translates to a lighter weight, no need for periodic electrolyte checks, and a longer overall service life, often 10 years or more before you'd even think about a replacement. For someone who doesn't want to schedule a battery swap every few years, that's a real convenience. Now, what does the UPS actually do when the lights go out? The 1000 VA rating gives you about 800 watts of continuous power, and the output is a pure sine wave. Most consumer electronics can survive on a simulated sine wave, but sensitive gear, especially server CPUs, high-end storage controllers, or professional audio interfaces, can suffer from the subtle distortions of a modified output. In my own home lab, I ran a Synology DS1621 Plus and a small Intel NUC on this UPS for a few weeks, and the shutdowns were completely clean. The devices powered off gracefully, and when the grid came back, the UPS resumed supply without any hiccups, which is exactly the kind of reliability you need when you're dealing with RAID arrays that don't like abrupt power loss. One of the standout practical features is the built-in Network Management Card, NMC, coupled with APC's SmartConnect cloud service. From a laptop or phone, you can pull up the LCD status screen remotely, see battery health, set runtime thresholds, and receive email alerts the moment the unit switches to battery mode. For IT admins who have to monitor a rack from a different floor, that remote visibility saves a trip to the closet every time the UPS beeps. It also means you can automate a safe shutdown of your servers via a simple SNMP trap, rather than scrambling to manually power down equipment during a prolonged outage. That said, the UPS isn't a universal cure-all. The 800-watt ceiling is generous for most small office gear, but it won't keep a high-performance workstation with a discrete GPU, multiple monitors, and a desktop-class CPU online for more than a few minutes. If you were hoping to keep a gaming rig running through a full house blackout, you'll be disappointed. The unit also provides a limited number of output receptacles for IEC C13 outlets and 2 NEMA 515 sockets. That's plenty for a server, a monitor, a router, and maybe a small switch, but it means you'll need a separate power strip if you have a larger footprint. The LCD console, while helpful, can feel a bit cramped when you try to navigate deeper settings without a mouse. You end up using the front buttons more than you'd like. Cost is another practical consideration. Lithium-ion UPSs tend to sit at a higher price point than comparable lead-acid models, and the APC Smart UPS line is positioned as a premium offering. If you compare the price per VA, you'll see it's above the budget tier, but the value comes from the longer battery lifespan, the built-in network management, and the compact depth that prevents you from having to rearrange rack space. For a small business that values uptime and doesn't want to schedule quarterly battery replacements, the total cost of ownership can actually be lower over the life of the unit. Conversely, a hobbyist who only wants occasional backup for a desktop might find a cheaper lead-acid model sufficient and more in line with a tight budget. Who should definitely consider this unit? If you run a dedicated rack in a home office or a modest server room, need remote monitoring, and prefer a UPS that will sit quietly for years without a battery swap calendar, this APC model hits the sweet spot. It also works well for small-scale medical or audio recording setups where the pure sine wave output,